Well, we've been here 7 times before, and I can't wait for this, the 8th edition of the CRO race. A more magnificent country at this time of year you'd be hard pushed to find. Stage 1 of the great race, which extends until next Sunday, so 6 stages in total, and a bit of a louder introduction, I think it's fair to say, than we are really used to. It's going to be a feast for the eyes this year after what was a bit of a damp squib last year. Primošten, the old town. I mean, just look at it. You can go fishing out the back window, for goodness sake. It is gorgeous. And if you're looking for sandy beaches, you possibly might find them, but at a stretch. It generally tends to be rocky. But because of that, it means that the waters are absolutely crystal clear. It is one of those spectacular places which is retina fizzing, I think it's fair to say. This was a sign-on earlier today, and to my mind, it's a bit of a gift to a professional cyclist to get this race at this time of year. Everywhere else is just sort of bordering on the miserable. And here, it's a reminder of just how lovely summer can be. 24 Celsius, 26 today, I think we're maxing out at. Light breeze, nothing too serious. Might blow up a little bit later on in the afternoon because, quite frankly, that's what happens. And yeah, let's see. Let's enjoy. Sign on today. Some unfamiliar teams perhaps for you. Maloya push bikes are here. They'll be hoping for people for today. The Santic men have decided to come along here. This is Vibertech, Santic Vibertech. They're always lively when it comes to the breakaway. We do have, however, top-level teams, ranked, I should say, as well here with Bahrain, Ineos, Little Trek, DSM, Jayco, CRO making the trip. But it's great to see the local heroes as well. Victor Patoki is certainly one of those, and so is Jarosz Rajbar. And as you can see, it's wide and varied. This is Adri Mobile. They'll be hoping that Aljaž Jarš does a job. Gal Glivar as well is often as busy as you like. And in fact, some teams here are here to punch above their weight. We're kind of used to seeing that with Una X Pro Cycling as well. And they have some big favourites, and indeed a couple of sprinters that today could go loud. Just look over to the Man Mountain on the right-hand side of the stage there, and you'll see Alexander Kristov. Yeah, he means business, and so do Bahrain Victorious, quite frankly. Mati Mohoric starting off as their out-and-out favourites, but today Matthias Govečka and indeed Nikolai Burati will be drawing the eye. Trekker here as well with Quinn Simmons, the American champion, hoping to do a Captain America all the way, but with Jonas Burastori and Tim Tom Teutenberg, best name in cycling. Yes, he'll be bashing the Tom-Tom a little bit later on, I'm sure, but watch out for Quinn Simmons because the sheer cheek of the man when it comes to rolling terrain is often, well, something to behold. Luke Rowe, Australian champion, is here. He's probably going to be backing up Ethan Hayter. Maybe he's backing up Luke Plapp, Australian champion, I beg your pardon. I think I've just moved Luke down under, but anyway. Luke, our sort of supreme road captain. Josh Tarling is here as well. Newly crowned European time trial champion, Connor Swift. Magnus Sheffield, another American that will probably go extremely well. Here is your Bahrain team. Big smiles. Come on, let's get the practice in. Well, I think we were supposed to be beating Rainer Kiplinger at that point. But yes, strong team by Bahrain Victorious, and indeed a big option with indeed Matej Mohoric. Well, the mayor himself was busy cutting up the sash and I guess making himself a pelmet for the little hatch through where he gets his coffee. Yeah, so who's going to get there today? Not quite sure. Some big options, I guess, if it does come down to a sprint, and Eli Viviani will have hopes. There'll be a few others as well. In terms of big sprinting names here, Tobias Lund will hope to go well as Pavel Bittner from Team DSM. Viviani backed up by Ethan Hayter, but you never know, it could go the other way as well. Campbell Stewart will have a dig for Jayco Alula. Juri Leitao will be the man for Kaya Rural, but watch out for Olius Alua, Venezuelan champion, who, to my mind anyway, is an all-terrain vehicle. We'll get to the sprint favourites a little bit later, but this was this morning as we rolled out local time, I guess, getting on for lunchtime. So yeah, get yourself a barbecued fish, which is a speciality of where we started today. 12:25 they got themselves underway, local time, and indeed it was designed this day, I think, in this entire race to show you the very best of this spectacular country, and we've seen quite a lot of it today. We are cutting inland, however, for our game today, and we'll have a little circuit to play with. They're that far away from the coast, and as you can see, smiles all round. My name's Carlton Kirby. I am joined by Philippa York, who was with me for the European Championships. What a gorgeous part of the world this is. And Philippa, if you are a pro cyclist and you get a gig like this, you've got to feel blessed.
Good afternoon. It certainly is a beautiful afternoon in Croatia. And, I know if I was there, I'd be looking at that beach lovingly and thinking, soon to be the holidays. But you know, in terms of racing, this is going to be a lovely race. Always over 25 degrees, it looks like this week, so what's not to like at the end of the year?
Yes, indeed. Well, not one for the kids, it's one for the grannies at this time of year. They're all back at school. Not the grannies, the kids. There's our finish today in Cinch. Should be a cinch. No, we've got some climbing along the way. 3 categorised climbs, 2 of which are Cat 2. And so a very different complexion to what we're used to, which is kind of like a pancake that's been ironed, turned into a billiard table. Yeah, we're playing with the lumps and bumps inland today, so yeah, I guess end of season. There will be some riders as well end of contract. I'm not quite sure how many of those are here, but a gift to those teams who want to have some bragging rights against the big Pro Tour teams. Then they really want to shine brightly at the beginning, and that's precisely what we had as our breakaway started to make a bit of a noise for itself right from the very off. And as you can see, it's the, I don't really want to call them invitee teams because they're here by rights, but Rinko Advarix went up the road with Ed Ravazzi. He was one of those that kicked on. Likewise, Michael Churan from ATT Investments. We had Raul Pierna, who got up there for Equipo Kern Pharma, and Babilacqua, Simone Babilacqua for Yolo Cometa. So 5 riders pushed on. See whether indeed they're still together by the time we indeed reach our live pictures, which are coming up in just a few moments' time. It looks like indeed it's settled down itself into a quartet before we're heading for air. That looked like Mario Gamper as well from Santic Vibertech. Well, clearly there was a little bit more than a skirmish on the front, maybe 1 or 2 incarnations of this breakaway before it finally settled down, and that looks like Raul Pierna just going out on a solo mission to make sure he is involved. These are the vineyards of Bučevac. Absolutely wonderful. It's a kind of a rich red wine that you get in these parts, and yeah, if you think about sort of black cherries, you're sort of heading towards that. I mean, we've been pretty much down where we started at the beginning of the day. This is the Šibenik old city that we're just coming by now, and you can see that, frankly, it draws the eye, does it not? Why would you not want to come and spend some time here? This is from 2 of the most beautiful and biggest pebble beaches. Pebble Beach, isn't that Miami? Really? But it's also here. But that gives us our crystal clear water that I was mentioning. So, time to engage with the day as we come through Šibenik, situated in the central part of the Croatian Adriatic. And this was your first intermediate sprint. Grabis taking it ahead of Babilacqua and indeed Garcia Pierna. So it was about now that our intermediates and indeed our breakaway had indeed been sorted out. So intermediate sprints dealt with. Bonuses along the way, not just points but seconds as well. And this is the St Nicholas Fortress, as you can possibly see, in a V formation, allowing you to defend all parts of the wall by basically just going around the corner and shooting back on yourself. Apparently. Šibenik is the only city in Croatia that has 2 UNESCO monuments, together with the beautiful Cathedral of St James, which I believe we've also seen. There's also this maritime fortress. So don't even think about trying to sack it, otherwise you'll be in trouble. A lot of Romanesque remains in these parts as well, as I'm sure will be shown a little bit later. Opening stage of the Tour of Croatia, and you join us, and as you can possibly see from the cypress trees here, there is virtually no wind at all. Well, they were promising us that it would blow up to about 20 kilometres an hour potentially in the afternoon. Sometimes you get that with convection. The heat rises, and indeed, because we're so coastal, the cooler air goes into the void, and you do get a bit of an afternoon breeze. Well, it looks like we've escaped that today, because we're just coming up to 3:15 in the afternoon, and as you can see, it's an absolutely spectacular day. Just waiting to get a time check, a gap if you will, to our breakaway of 5 riders who are up the road, but it looks like this is a modest control that's being invoked for the time being, and it's Bahrain Victorious that are happy to take on that duty. Also Jaco Alula are in the mix, and here are our band of brothers. We'll wait and see indeed what the time gap is, but with 85.9 kilometres to go, Pippa York, this is a great day to reach for the bike and just go out and enjoy.
Oh, you wish, Carlton, thank you.
It's gorgeous.
If only it was this sunny back in the UK. It does look like a gorgeous day. A really nice race to settle into just before the last races of the year. So it should be an interesting week. Traditionally, this race has been a mix of flat stages with the finishes in a bunch sprint and then a couple of little uphill kicks would kind of sort out the GC, so we'll see how it develops, but it's interesting to see that Bahrain have kind of taken control already, having last year's winner Matthew Mohoric, so I think they're quite intent on seeing that happen again. Yeah,
it's always interesting to see where the ambition is displayed earlier on. At the moment, 2 minutes and 44 is your gap with 85 kilometres to go. That's a reasonably healthy gap, but I don't think it holds any fear for the riders who are here. Now, this race, it used to be kind of a warm-up really for ahead of the Giro d'Italia, and then it moved station because it was getting quite crowded up there. And I think it's found a really nice home as a sort of a summer extension for Europe. When that happened, of course, mixed weather conditions occasionally, but today, and indeed all this week, we're going to be blessed with this. Blue skies, not exactly scorchio, but that's just what you want. Hovering around between 22 and 26 Celsius throughout the entire week. Just absolutely gorgeous. Well, it's hard to describe the atmosphere that surrounds this race, because I would say it's quite a cosy race to be part of. Not just because of the temperatures, but the way it's actually met. I think when it first started, Pippa, fans were not really that sure what cycling was all about, and they've gradually grown to love it. But it's still not the biggest priority in Croatia, I must say, in sporting terms. But it's found a place in the hearts of everybody, and when you go to the villages and the towns, they are genuinely really delighted to have it come along, even though it's still, I guess, something of an oddity.
Yes, I think it's it's a bit like the UK, maybe even less kind of cycling culture. So when the race comes through, it's going to be a bit of a party atmosphere. But as you can see, it just looks so nice to get rolling along. It doesn't look very stressful. The whole country just kind of looks like it's got a nice kind of calm. We're by the seaside, a bit of olive groves, a bit of wine. It looks like a perfect tourist destination, and when you go there as a pro bike rider, you don't really need a lot of stress at this time of year. You've got the last couple of big rendezvous coming up, like Lombardia, and some of those important Italian races that follow this. So this is kind of perfect preparation for them.
It's a funny time, this, isn't it? I mean, there's all kinds of rumours swirling around of what's happening to Soudal Quickstep and Team Jumbo-Visma. But it's not just the big teams that are in flux. Just about all cycling teams, it's a busy time for them to find sponsors, secure contracts for next year, and there are always riders that get very, very late deals, aren't there? And I kind of feel sorry for the stress that that invokes within riders, particularly some of the younger ones who've maybe had their trials and maybe they haven't shone as brightly as they possibly could. This will be a last chance for some of them to wave a flag really in the face of the selectors, because it's a difficult time to be a pro rider, isn't it, this time of year, if you do not have a contract moving forward.
Yes, you have to say that being a professional cyclist doesn't have a lot of job security. So you get to this time of year, especially this season, we've seen a lot of kind of instability and question of who's going where. I think probably mainly caused by Ineos Grenadiers not confirming who their riders are going to be, and then signing up riders, and then kind of just do a kind of preliminary contract to say, okay, you might sign for us, so you've got that kind of agreement that you might come here, and then not following it up, and that's kind of left the whole peloton in this state of flux. And as you say, then you have the Soudal quick step team always look like they're going to try and sign somebody or move somewhere else, and that's one of those things that Patrick Lefevere does so well. He keeps his team in the news, because Belgium, they require cycling news every day. So there's a lot of riders kind of wondering where they're going to be, and it's not a great position to be in as a bike rider.
Not nice at all. Yeah, I mean, rumours of a merger between Jumbo-Visma and Soudal Quickstep. Apparently it rocked Remco Evenepoel, who was described as not very happy about it at all. And this is a man on your screen at the moment, Josh Tarling, who has been very much front and centre of our thoughts. Just delight to watch him in the Europeans. just teasing Connor Swift there momentarily. European time trial champion, a massive future ahead of him, still very much a youngster, only 19 years of age. And I guess to a certain degree, yes, he has that dialed in accomplishment of time trialling, but as many racing kilometres as he can get into his legs, the better. This is all part of that process. Well, looking down the line here, this is Buying the Right to Fight by Team Jayco Alula. They'll be hoping for Stuart Campbell to do something for them today. He is their chosen sprinter. There's quite a few quick men here. How accomplished they'll be by, or regarded as such, by the end of the race is anybody's guess. Alexander Kristoff has made the trip. I keep thinking his winning time is kind of over, and then he just pops up and does the job again. And don't write him off in this company to be very much part of proceedings at the end, even though it's lumpy.
Absolutely not. And he's, as you say, he frequently pops up just when you think he's kind of lost that spark. But there's not many big name sprinters here, so Kristoff kind of is the best ranked. But then you've got Viviani and Ethan Hayter, Tobias Lund. So for a lot of them, they'll be looking for at least a win here, because the opportunities are so plentiful compared with most little stage races that you get nowadays.
They are indeed, and of course the points count as well towards the end of the year. Little Trek have made the trip. They've got Jon Aberastori, Tim-Tom Teutenberg, I think I mentioned him earlier on. Kai Rorau are the ones that really draw my eye, with Jory Leitao and Orlus Alois. Now Leitao is the more dialed in sprinter, but Orlus Alois, as he proved in La Vuelta, can actually get up, especially if it's a bit gnarly, and I suggest today is a bit like that. As you can see, the road's not exactly flat. We are playing with the hills. We've got 3 categorised climbs along the way, so it's not going to be necessarily all for the sprinters. Tobias Lund can be furiously fast, and indeed he was at the beginning of this year, but mostly he likes rising sprints. Now we do have a little bit of a rise today. Whether Tobias Lund, whether it be enough for him, I think he'd probably prefer a bit more of a ramp, but he often suffers as well when it comes to battles for position, so I'm not sure how busy it's going to be and how frantic the approach will be. Quite often within this race, people, we've had a very busy final series of climbs, and the later they come, the busier they are, and it's for the strong sprinters, quite frankly, on occasion, and this may well be that kind of day.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be quite frantic at the end of this first stage. Everybody's fresh. It doesn't look too stressful in the peloton, so you have to imagine that it's going to be a bit for those kamikaze guys that you see occasionally.
There'll be plenty of those today. Well, there is a King of the Mountains jersey up for grabs for this breakaway today. They've got 2 minutes and 37. They are dealing with the climbs sporadically. We still have 79 kilometres of the day remaining, and indeed those categorised tests, we've had one. In fact, we've had 2 climbs. We still have another to come. So we shall see. Unfortunately, I've got no data to tell you the results of the climbs, and there's no rolling data for us, so we're going to have to rely on the graphics when they pop up. But nonetheless, they've decided to show us some of their publicity shots here as well. Yeah, some of them are better at having a picture taken than others. There's the odd lens cracker out here. This is Edward, Ravazzi, the 29-year-old. You may remember the Tour de l'Avenir a few years ago. Found himself just behind David Gaudu. That was a breakaway that Gaudu finally just left everyone in the wake, but it was a quality field that he got the better of. And likewise Ravazzi, I guess you might say. Egan Bernal was in there, Jai Hindley, Theo Gegenhardt, Michael Story, you get the idea. So occasionally Ed Ravazzi does a job, and he's found himself here with Team Rinkhoff Avarix. He was formerly of Yolo Cometa, and so I guess it may well. I wonder when Bevilacqua signed for Yolo Cometa. He's also in the break. I'll tell you what, why don't I just look and find out for you. Bevilacqua number 64 also as part of this break. Indeed, yes, they've been teammates for a couple of years, so I guess erstwhile teammates together again. It's a very tight community, cycling, and even if you swap teams, you generally tend to have friends within other teams. Obviously they become the best of enemies whenever the circumstances demand it, but yeah. So Bevilacqua and indeed our friend Ravazzi, former teammates, now separated but together again in the breakaway. Michael Choran is also here. Looking at Eli Viviani, I guess a season that's been quite quiet by his own standards, Pippa.
Yeah, it's not been a great season for Viviani. Last year wasn't spectacular either, and this year it's been even quieter. So you imagine that he kind of wants to do something in this race. From the way the Ineos Grenadiers are riding at the back, I don't think they're here to take control of this situation straight away. Interesting that they bought George Tarling. He's done quite obviously he's in really good form, and he's been doing quite a lot of races lately. So you imagine that they've programmed this to, you know, as you said, get as much experience he can in these races at World Tour level, and see if he can see how he copes with that workload as he kind of looks at his future in the professional ranks.
It's a good idea. Right, today, Alexander Kristoff. He's actually a much bigger lad than he was in the past. So well, let's deal with Bahrain Victorious first, shall we? So we seem to be going through it. Matej Moric, our defending champion. We have Mihailovic, Keplinger is also here. Johan Price Pedersen, the Dane. Matej Govecka and indeed Nico Barati are the men that could get up today. They also have Filip Masishuk, the Pole, as part of their group. It's very much a sort of Eastern European look to it, and that's perhaps what you'd expect when you come to these parts. Slow enough, the terrain today, and the gap, well, the pace actually is it's bordering on the interminable at the moment. There is no desire at all to kick on. I guess this is the peloton making a statement about the breakaway, which gives us a chance to have a look around this lovely part of the world. Now, this looks like a cooling tower, but it's not. This is the Grande Fortress. There we are. It's the Chicola Canyon that stretches from the town of Drinis to the mouth of the Kirka River, and that's where the Zdradinsky, doing my best, waterfall is. The beginning of the end, apparently it's called. Yes, 2 medieval fortresses. Well, welcome back everybody who's been away. You've missed out on some medieval fortresses. The Grandia, which we've just seen, dominates the view of the Drnis and the fort Pluzishka. I'm taking a run at these. I'm probably bringing all the hurdles down with me, but I'm giving it my best shot, so be kind. Mati Mohoric, our defending champion. How's he going to go this year?
I think he's got a good chance of backing this up. Looking at the parkour, it's not super difficult, and quite often it finishes at the top of a little climb, and he's so good on those kind of finishes. But he's also fast enough to take some of the intermediate sprints where there's 3, 2 and 1 seconds. So in those circumstances, given that they're with the Bahrain Victorious already on the front, I imagine that they're thinking the same, that Mohoric could easily win this race. If you look at his record this year, he won Slovenia, he's just won Poland. He won a stage at the Renui Tour, and then we remember the stage 19 in Tour de France to Poligny, where he won. So he's having a better end to the year than he did start, and I can imagine he'd quite like to add this race the second time to his palmarès.
I think so. Similar kind of rider, I guess you could say, is Ethan Hayter, which is why he starts so strongly. And in fact, is one of those that could feature in the sprint at the end of today. As Pippa just said, Mati Mohoric, don't be surprised if he gets up as well. Depends what Eli Viviani's role is today. I've got a feeling, because his palmarès this year in terms of sprinting results is so thin, he would actually quite like to give himself a confidence boost. He's still got a year of his contract with Ineos Grenadiers left. He'd like a win. He'd like the leader's jersey, which will by default go to the winner of today's stage, because I can't see any of these guys getting up for second place, just to sort of snaffle that. But on the back of the intermediate sprint bonuses, and in fact that wouldn't even be enough to take indeed the day. So let's see. Winner of today leads the race, and I think Eli Viviani would quite like that. I
think he would. Whether he's capable of it is another thing. Quite often, and these kind of opening stages, Ethan Hayter's been faster. I think it takes Eli Viviani, now that he's more experienced, I think it takes him a few more days to get going, just to get that kind of race speed back in his legs again. I'd see Ethan Hayter been a bit better bet for Ineos this year, especially if they've got Magnus Sheffield, who always does a really massive turn into the kilometre and strings things out. That kind of puts them in an ideal situation, and I get the feeling that Viviani's been quite hesitant in the sprint so far this year, and
there's a bit of that. Yeah, I actually think as well, people, when you get to that time of life, sometimes you start to believe in your own mortality a bit more, and I don't know, does an edge go missing with age?
Yes, it does. After a while, you think with all the experience you have and you've been in those race situations before, you tend to hesitate, and you can't really do that too much in sprints. One hesitation is 2-3 meters, and unless you're super fast, you don't really come back to that. And I think that's what's happening to Viviani. He's thinking, well, it's not quite the time, and then that moment of, right, now I'll go, and it's too late then, because the younger guys will just throw themselves at the horizon, and they're not afraid of falling off either, because they haven't fallen off enough to have the scars on every corner.
Well, it's the dread of the recovery process as well, and just how much that knocks out of you. And of course, the youngsters recover quicker as well. They think, well, it wasn't too bad. It gets worse. 2 minutes and 6 with 74 kilometres to go, and a little bit more pep about us now as we come off our left. We're coming off a high plain back down towards the coast. We've got another categorised climb, which is up the road in front of us, and that will be around Sinch when we finally get there. We're going downhill now for probably about 15 kilometres actually of descending, so it'll be a bit of pace. It'll eat quite a bit out of the day, leaving us around about 60 to go. We'll have an open plain down by the water side. You can see we're heading back to it right now. Then we'll pick up for our final climb of the day. It's a Category 2 test. No easy matter either, but once we get to the top of it, I think that's where the attacks will come. And I think that's what's going to do for this breakaway. They'll hold the margin, I believe, all the way down to the coast now, but then we've got about 15 kilometres of racing on relative flat compared to the rest of the day before we then pick up and take this climb. Now, the climb itself is about 15 kilometres in length. There it is. So we're just coming down that midsection spike. This will tell you where we are in a few moments' time. There we are. And so we have that little kicker before we get to that second intermediate sprint. They've been generous with the sprints out there. You can pick up 9 bonus seconds, but there's 10 on the line, so the winner will pip you if they finish in front of you, obviously. Oh no, you could get 6 seconds, and then if you've won all the intermediates, but my maths is busy defeating me, as you can possibly see. Tunnels, we've got them here. Lots of European money has poured into this part of the world, and with good reason as well. It's infrastructure and indeed a pleasant living environment. It acts as a kind of a bar, doesn't it, to life in general. 2 minutes, we're now sub that as we head back down towards the coast, and the frequency of the light just changing with the lengthening of the shadows here. And these 5, I mean, this is a game that is so wonderful to play when you have a closed highway and you have this sort of freedom and that much space and this beautiful rolling surface. I think I could keep up here, Pippa.
I think that depends on how heavy you are downhill.
Is mass an advantage if you can keep it out the wind?
So the bigger you are on this kind of downhill, the better. So I think you'd be, depending on your skill level to ride in the middle of the peloton, I think you could, most people will be able to follow here. But that's one of those things that the kind of the average cyclist doesn't realise what it's like to be in the middle of a peloton at 70 kilometres an hour. It's scary unless you're used to it, unless you have the kind of skills to be comfortable in that situation. Then, although you think I'll be okay, it doesn't look that hard. If you think about the number of times you go over 60 kilometres an hour on when you're up for a kind of normal ride, it's not very often, and it can be quite intimidating.
As was that, the Klis Fortress, one of the most significant fortifications in Croatia, due to its strategic importance, a significant defensive position. And this looks like a rather spectacular hotel. As you're looking at it, looks like a spectacular series of apartments. But anyway, perhaps that's Brian Smith, very knowledgeable about this part of the world, mainly due to the fact that he's spent a lot of time here. Minute and 41. And, well, they're still holding the burden here, Bahrain victorious. It's not much of one, however. There are some days, Pippa, that you find yourself on the front and it's not that much of a task. At the beginning of a race like this, especially when you're going downhill and there's virtually no wind and possibly even a tailwind on occasion, it doesn't look that arduous to be in control.
That sounded quite cruel to say that. I'm sure their heartbeats, the two riders who are actually doing work on the front, they'll be working quite hard.
They'll be writing to me later.
Even though they're, we don't see mouths fully agape and them gasping for oxygen, but they'll be working while everybody else in the middle of the peloton will be kind of cruising along at 100 heartbeats a minute. They'll be fairly comfortable in this situation, which is going to make that last 40 kilometres even crazier because everybody's kind of strolled along. This race reminds me of a bit like Sicily, the kind of old tour of Sicily, where you can stroll along and it doesn't look too stressful. And then, that last half hour, definitely the last hour, the amount of pressure that you have to fight for the front is just crazy. And the last half hour turns into this thing where riders that you don't really recognise because they come from like a lot of smaller teams here, they come and they fight for position when you're thinking, well, don't you know who I am? So show me a bit of respect. I'm on a big team and you're just trying to kill me on that corner. So I imagine there's going to be quite a lot of that. The World Tour teams are in the minority here, and I can't imagine that the continental teams, they've shown a bit of respect, but they won't be, you know, overly scared because up until now it's not been too hard.
Exactly. The difficult point today, to my mind, is going to be with 750 metres to go. Yes, I appreciate that we've still got quite a way to go before we get to that point. But it's a roundabout, and apparently you have to go 3/4 of the way around it. There's no shortcut. Might be some dive bombing there. Yes, corners, bossing them, it's a difficult thing. There's two significant corners on our approach today. One is at 1.65 kilometres to go. It's a left-hander. You'll really want to be in a decent position then, but it's not really where the sprinters will be absolutely dialed in and alone. That comes much later. In fact, there'll still be some riders who would hold on to a lead-out man if they possibly can as a good guide through that 750 marker. Don't worry, we'll describe it to you a little bit later, but whenever you have a big turn within the Flamme Rouge, it usually causes chaos. This is the Vatski Viteshovi Sports Centre. I can say the last two words there. Sports Centre. The other ones you'll have to forgive me. I need to brush up on my Croatian to be. Is it Serbo-Croat? Is that? I'll probably have somebody saying no. It's not, but I believe it is. Minute 48, 66 kilometres from home. There is, in these parts, there is also a kind of a strange atmosphere occasionally, particularly when you get to some of the bigger cities like Zagreb. Dare I say it, you'll get a warmer welcome in the tourist areas than you will in the city itself. Although I have to say I'm very fond of Zagreb, and particularly the finish that we've got. But how can I put this? In the old days of communism, which you can see the architects took great heed. I guess when they were designing it, they had a lot of shoeboxes to look at. So that's what you've got. So as beautiful as this country is out on the coast, and spectacularly so, even inland, some amazing geography. I think there's very much a high-density population was kind of guided by some of the collective philosophy of the politics back in the day. That's as polite as I can say it. Brutalist architecture is probably the rudest way I could say it, but you get the idea. And they're not given to serving you particularly well, because it's a communist state, for goodness sake, as was back in the day. And so you generally tend to find the oldies, and I'm talking people 60 plus, they're not really keen on you. but the youngies, they are very nice. So
I think what you're trying to say is that the people who are a bit more advanced in age are quite happy for you not to come there, and annoy them and kind of break up their routine.
That's pretty much the same everywhere with grumpy old people, of which I count myself one, obviously. But honestly, Croatia is such a beautiful place to come. Make sure you do. Stick it on your to-do list, because it is gorgeous. Edward Vatsi, we've seen his visage a couple of times. He's part of our breakaway. We need to do them some honour here. It's not a bad breakaway that we've got up the road here, Pippo. With Bevel Aqua from Elo and indeed Kern Farmers Raul Piera. It's not just the invitee teams that have made the move.
No, so we got rider from Elo Cometa and one from Kern Farmers. So we often quite see those teams try to get in the breakaway. They've managed to put two riders in the break. Whether the continental level riders are going to be much help to them as it gets harder is going to be quite hard to say. I imagine there'd be quite a hierarchy in terms of ability in that break, and it's up to the stronger riders to pull when they pull as much as they can without hurting the others, and using your lesser competitors to your advantage. But as you were saying, about the bonuses, even if they take up all 9 seconds, I can't imagine they're going to be involved in a kamikaze sprint at the end of the stage.
No. There are certain teams, however, that were in the past expected to be kind of invitee teams. Excuse me. And they're quite happy to ignore that billing, quite simply. And so as a result, you get teams, I'm thinking in particular UNO-X, the pro cycling team, UNO-X, they really fully invest in every race that they come to. And they come here as well as definitely one of the teams to watch, particularly towards the end of today. So they can end up in a Grand Tour, and then all of a sudden people are saying, hang on, aren't you supposed to be in the breakaway? To which the answer quite clearly comes back, no, we're here to win stages. And quite frankly, we don't care what you think about that. Of course, brilliant in the Arctic race, occasionally getting invitations to, well, the Tour de France, of course. Yes, why not? And indeed had some great results this year as well. Maybe not as highly placed as perhaps they had thought, but Jonas Abramson going very well in the Tour this year, particularly late on. And they generally tend to get stronger as well because they're such a bound unit, UNO-X, that quite frankly they are happy to fully engage with bigger teams, of which they have ambition to be one in the end. And I hope they make it, because Norway needs a team.
I think every country needs a team, even if you're kind of investing in cycling a little bit. And, certain countries tend to limit their recruitment, or not limit their recruitment, but focus their recruitment on having their riders from that, where the team's registered. So I think, for UNO-X, I think what we love about them as commentators is they're really easy to spot. so the jersey is one of those kind of distinctive jerseys. But as you were saying, they come to a race and they generally have a plan of what they're going to do. So I imagine we'll see them later trying to get Tobias Lund in a good position for the sprint. And then on the GC day, they're bound to have an option there too, even though they don't really have the big names at this race, because a lot of their riders have been competing elsewhere. So as the race develops, I think we'll see more and more of them.
Well, it is Raul Pierre that's in the break. Some of the start lists that we've seen today have actually declared him wearing a different number to that. But Roger Adria is their principal for this race, and there is no surprise there. But Raul García Piana, the Spaniard, he's had some pretty good results actually, and he's a good young rider. He's only 22 years of age. I always catch myself when I say that, because we've kind of got used to some youngsters thriving at an elite level and doing so from being teenagers onwards. Look at Josh Charling, for goodness sake. And so I kind of feel sorry for some others who are taking a little bit longer, almost like a normal time really, to actually come through the ranks. But he certainly has done extremely well. Won the youth classification in the Tour of Slovenia, and in the time trial that we had at the World Champs for the under 23s. Yes. He also went extremely well, so I think he finished in 4th place in that. So he's actually good part of the engine room, which is why he's very useful up here, the man from Kern Farmer, in the sort of dark green. One thing that strikes you when you come to Croatia is just how fantastic the roads generally are. We talk about heavy roads and indeed those beautiful rolling roads, and they generally tend to be the latter here. They're extremely well drained with beautiful surfaces, and they don't look worn out. As simple as that. And so if you do take to a bike while you're over here, there's not that intensity of traffic either in Croatia. You can really enjoy yourself. Have you ever been, Pippa?
Unfortunately, I haven't. It does look really nice.
Here we go.
Hotspot sprint.
Yep, and why not? Well worth having. I hope they give us an assembly of how the points are so far. Thrown to the line, and a nice job done as well. And I must say that these have been rather sprightly thought for along the way. Grabish it is that takes this one. Well, the bonus seconds, and of course for smaller teams, the cash bonuses therein count for an awful lot.
And there's probably going to be a competitivity prize, so a visit to the podium, which always important to the smaller teams.
Here we are, second sprint. Gramish takes it ahead of Garcinia Perna and Bevilacqua as we sail by another one of these spectacular cities that indeed dot along the coast here. We're on a series of loops, so we're heading out and then coming back into town. Zinch is indeed our destination today, and it's up in the hills, so we're going to start climbing naturally to actually get up there. That's what you're seeing right now. It's not the most arduous start to a race, but I often think that draws out a very feisty response at the end, and you can see there's more of the peloton getting interested now. Well, we're coming to that magic time that you were talking about with about 50 kilometres to go, and of course with a climb factored into it likewise. Gap's holding at 2 minutes. I don't think there's anyone in the breakaway that's holding something back to use after this climb. They look like they've gone for everything that's been put before them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking about X just a minute ago. Suddenly they appear at the front with this second cut. So the last of the climbs today, there's only 3, and X appeared at the front just at the right moment. So they are paying attention again.
Well, they know how to race here as well, having been here in the past. It counts for a lot. You sort of know the mood of the race. As you can see, it's not the most popular support, but as we were saying, it is a relatively new sport in these parts. So it's despite the fact that the Crow race is now in its 8th year. There was formerly the Tour of Croatia, and was an organisational split, but since the Crow race has indeed taken control as a unit, it's been brilliant. Here is the Diocletian Palace, built more than 1700 years ago. Here it is, one of the best preserved monuments of Roman engineering in the world. Think Romanesque, 1700 years ago. Yeah. Right. I think 1,700 years ago is Romanesque, so apologies. I was reading the 1700s, but no, it's work your way back. So that would be about 305 AD, thereabouts. Yeah, apparently it was built for an emperor for his retirement. What a nice gift. Nobody's given me anything like that, but anyway. That probably wasn't still working, but anyway. Yeah, the southern part of the palace accommodated the imperial apartments and spaces for state and religious ceremonies. The northern section was reserved for the imperial guard, the servants, and indeed storage. It's where they kept the TVs and the computers that they didn't want to use anymore. But hung on to them for too long without throwing them away.
I think it was an abacus and a bit of string back then, not a computer. I don't think. I think Apple meant apples then, and not something else.
Exactly. But it is a UNESCO World Heritage Centre, despite the butchery of which I have engaged in describing it. So apologies for that. This is getting serious, and for that we are grateful. And X, as they often do, they start to come into that phase of control, and they're happy to take on the burden because they've got cards to play. Not least, of course, today, Alexander Kristoff. Is he going to win?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
No.
Poor Alexander.
I think this is a kind of day for Ethan Hayter.
Looks like it, yeah.
Just from the way he's doing his usual thing. Been totally relaxed down the back, not really getting involved until he has to. And when you think with Josh Charnley here for Ineos, it's not going to be difficult for him to move up.
That is true. I mean, what a tow rope that would be. Magnus Sheffield wants to be well placed as well, because I think he's one of the out-and-out favourites for the title here. Say it quietly, but the American will go loud. Eddie Dunbar holds the overall ambitions for Jaco Alula. He had a terrible welter, exited very early. He needs a good result here just to cheer himself up, quite frankly. And Sean Kelly, who was gutted. Yeah, Campbell Stewart for Jaco Alula is their man. I'm actually wondering I'm waiting to see if Eddie Viviani does the lead out for Ethan Hayter today. I think he'll get one shot at it, Eddie Viviani. Might be tomorrow. And so it could be that he looks after Hayter for bonus seconds if Hayter's got the legs. That's where you get teams who have to engage in a little bit of discussion and the hope that everyone's being honest about their capabilities on a day like this.
You would imagine so. But yeah, I'm still going to go with Ethan Hayter. I think he's, in this kind of first stage, he's slightly faster.
Let's see. Welcome back, those of you who have been away. We have seen the gap close to about 1:50. It's gone back up again just on the flatlands here. And I'm not saying there's been a protest back there, but Bahrain Victorious are going to be nobody's fool. They have got Maciej Skoweczka and they have Nicolo Burati as well. And that means that they don't want to burn themselves down, quite frankly. So yes, I think they are now a bit tired of doing all the work, both themselves and Jaco Alula. Jaco will be working for Campbell Stewart and make sure that Eddie Dunbar is safe. Matej Mohoric, the defending champion for Bahrain Victorious, Govechka and Burati, of course, the sprinters for they. But Mohoric can get up as well, let's not forget. And just a reminder that we have the Tour of Langkawi on our screens at the moment. Very much something you should be heeding. Well, Stefan Kovar of Team Rinkhoff and Varix unfortunately abandoned his first of the day. And indeed first of the race. Let's just hope that everyone else stays safe. Not quite sure why. It can just be a... well, it could be anything, quite frankly. A little bit of tummy trouble. Thankfully, it seems that the illness that was starting to bedevil the peloton during the Tour de France never really rose its head during the Vuelta. We did have some sickness, but not that much. And so we're always alive to the fact of it, of course, along the way, and just hope that that is indeed behind us. Oscar Onley, great bet, actually, for somebody to be very much part of proceedings, and indeed potentially a winner of this race. How high do you see Oscar Onley up the pecking order, Pippa?
I think he's going to be up for this race now. He's come back out after being injured at the Vuelta in the opening days. And you have to remember, last year he was twice second to a certain Jonas Vingegaard on each of the uphill finishes. So
he was
obviously was motivated for this race last year, and I imagine he's got a number of things to prove. He was sent to the Vuelta as one of the kind of options for the GC just to see how far he would go in a Grand Tour, and I imagine now coming back from the injuries he suffered, he want to make some kind of nice ending to this year.
Hope so. It's always a long road, even if you're a young man, to come back. But yeah, I think he'll be looking at Thursday's route, which is the punchy stage. Opotica. That is a real puncher's day. And that's where Oscar Onley will really thrive, I think. Friday's the big day. That's the Queen stage, you might say, from Leibin to Leibin, I should say, 191 kilometres. And that's where we should find our overall winner. Saturday we kind of come out and start climbing right at the beginning of the day, open plain after that, so there's a lot for the fast riders here. Zagreb, I'm actually really hoping and praying that they have not got rid of our rather peaky finale, which I love about Zagreb. It's spectacular. I'm going to double check because my own maps of it don't display that punchy finale that we're so used to. It looks like a flatter course that we're going to be dealing with this time, which is a real shame if indeed it's missing. I think it is this year. But hey, you can't have everything you want. And it's down to the organisers to give us a competitive terrain. And it looks like perhaps, Pippa, it's too much for our breakaway to stay together.
Yeah, so you've got, how would we say it, Bevy, how were you saying it earlier, Garton? I know you've shortened your Logarithmeters rider's name to something that was more manageable, but it looks like they're in trouble slightly.
They are,
at the start of the climb.
Bevilacqua. From Yolokometa looks like he is struggling just a little bit, and this is why the teams were starting to muster, because this is a proper climb. It's a category 2 test, but it's very long. Yes,
it's 7.5 kilometers, almost 5%. I think back in the peloton they were more worried about the tunnel that starts it, so they come out of split this a little bit flat, then we start the climb, but there was a danger point marked in the roadbook. There was 200 meters of unlit tunnel, so the World Tour teams will move up then just to make sure that they don't get caught up in any kind of incident when it goes dark.
So this is our final climb, and we'll be dealt with it with about 47 kilometres remaining. So we're leaving the coastal area and we're heading up northeast. It's the category 2 Kilch climb. It's 7.5 kilometres in length. But it's actually longer than that before it's categorised. And 4.9, so that's a proper wearing percentage, I think it's fair to say. That's the average over it. It does have some sections which are a bit tougher than that. And when we get to the top of it, in about 5 kilometres' time, they will have got 134 kilometres in their legs. All right, it's a dry day, it's not terribly windy, and it's just a gorgeous 26 Celsius, today. So yeah, we'll find ourselves suddenly on a flat plateau, and that's where Cinch is, and indeed it's our finish town. So we've sort of dealt with the climbs once this is out of the way. So if there was going to be an attack, it would have to be kind of now. It does roll the terrain gently on the way on a big old circuit around Cinch. But I was hoping that this would draw out a big response and somebody going out for a long ranger. But there's too many fast men here that believe they've got an option, and the teams are holding it together for that.
I think everybody's quite happy for this to kind of roll along, with only 2 riders on the front. So Rudy Porter for Jayco and Johan Price Pedersen for Bahrain doing all the work. They've got the brake under control just with the 2 of them. So nobody's going to be really worried about it. And like I said, first day, kind of ease yourself into the race, get a little bit of speed from the nice surface that it is, and then stress about or worry about what's coming in the rest of the week. There's only really kind of one hard day, I think stage 4, where there's a climb to about just over 1,000 meters, but the rest of it is kind of small climbs, 4 or 5 kilometers at the most. So nothing really too heavy, which is ideal for a kind of fairly aggressive race. But the first day, it's going to be 30 degrees in the sun there. So, in this type of situation, you tend to enjoy that in the peloton, and just to kind of not worry too much about what's going to happen later in the week.
Well, for those of you asking, no, this is not Stanage Edge. That's in Derbyshire, where I hail from. But it is, if anything, far bigger, as you possibly expect in these parts, and absolutely beautiful as well. A big limestone outcrop. We're actually going up to the plateau. I'm hoping that we catch sight at some point of the Dalmatia, which is this amazing geological feature. It's a tiny little harbour area, as was in ancient times. It's dried out, and of course it's a natural circular wall to this village. It's gorgeous. It's not even a village, it's about 6 buildings, but I want one of them. There you are. I'm putting in my bid already. Gap's gone up 2 minutes and 45 with just over 50 kilometres to go. It's as you were, despite the fact it was looking a bit mob-handed, as you said before we got to the tunnels, Pippa. It's back to Jayco and Bahrain to do the job by the looks of things.
Yeah, there's no real worries for the moment. It's almost 50 kilometres once we get to the top, so start pouring on the coals once we get up there. There's no descent, so the brake riding harder on this climb, they're going to just tire themselves out, and then the really big engines will come to the front as we head towards Cinch, and just that kind of natural selection, natural speed it up in the last hour will take back the brake.
Well, Cinch, you may know that you can fly in here, but I think it's possibly only on a private pilot's license. I think it's a green airfield. But so don't try and book your tickets. You need to get yourself a pilot's license. But it tells you that it is reasonably flat once we get up to the top of this limestone outcrop. Whenever I mention geology, there's somebody who gets in touch with me who's very moody about it, and said it's not limestone, it's calciferous something or other.
Are you thinking of our colleague Jose Bean?
No, Jose is has no, not at all. Jose wouldn't tell me off as violently as this gentleman does. but anyway, no. Have you had a look at Jose's notes for the geology today?
No, I haven't. I do find that very interesting.
Me too, actually.
That's actually become a thing. So for us to talk about wines and cheeses and all the rest of it, but not everybody's interested in that. And
indeed,
I think that you, as somebody, when you go for a bike ride, you tend to notice what's going to run about you. So I spent a lot of time outside as a bike rider, and I never really kind of paid much attention to what kind of trees and kind of geology things happened until later in my career. And I think it's quite interesting that if you give that little bit of information out, then people start to notice their surroundings other than just looking down at your computer to see what speed you're doing or how far you've gone.
Can be extraordinarily useful as well. The information. I remember on the tour of Turkey, we were warned about laterite, which is like very fine slate, but it basically, when it crumbles, it comes down as little tiny knives, and it was the gravel at the side of the road, and they warned everyone, do not go to the side of the road, you will puncture. And even if you approach the side of the road and you just find one of these little shards, it's going to be a nightmare. And sure enough, we went through this area, and it was a laterite rock that the road had been cut into, and I think about 20 riders got punctures, front and back. It was a nightmare. But hey, they were warned. 2 minutes and 38 is the gap, and our 5 amigos, are we still together? We looked like we were losing the Vosta ATS team mate of these guys, Matthias Grabisch, and it looks like he indeed was lost upon the climb. He was up in the sprints, so he did his job today. I guess he's heading back to the peloton to recharge himself and maybe stay within the pack and use those bonus seconds to get himself a good finish today.
Unfortunately, we haven't had much information of who won the previous
it was Grabisch.
Climbs. It was Grabisch?
Yeah. He took the sprint, I should say. I beg your pardon, the last sprint.
So
we're still waiting till we get to the top of this one, I believe.
Yes, to see who's going to be in the climbers jersey tomorrow.
Well, it'll be a surprise to us because unfortunately we don't have the data. But let us see. 4 riders remaining then. Just seeing if anyone's carrying radios. They were missing in the Europeans. Yes, they are. I thought I saw a thumbing of in fact, there you are. You can see the earpieces as well, and the wires therein.
Yeah, back in the peloton they had a little black box on their back, so everybody knows where they are back in the team cars.
There was a time, wasn't there, not that long ago, where they were trying to get rid of them, and it was deemed to be safety reasons that they were kept. And some of the bigger teams, I guess, with more negotiating rights, perhaps, really did not want to let them go, because it's all part of the modern strategization of each and every single race. And it dropped down the order. I remember when we first came to Croatia and indeed to Turkey, there were no race radios. And quite often you get breakaways that the peloton thought they'd caught, and there was a lone rider who'd skittled off and they weren't aware of them. That magic's now lost, I'm afraid.
And did we ever see that classic moment for somebody to sprinted for second place but thought they won?
Oh, we had plenty of that.
That's always very embarrassing.
It is a bit. I think the last time I saw that was in the Roma Maxima, when that was going a couple of years ago. I've seen it since, where, Alaphilippe famously, of course, went and celebrated, and Roglic mugged him. So it can happen. But that was just a missed-timed celebration, as opposed to really going for it, thinking that they won. Of course, in the Welter, Remco Evenepoel was very upset because Kron, I believe, had won in... No, not Kron. I'll find out. I'll remember in a moment. One of the stage wins. It was the first stage win for Roglic on La Vuelta. Evenepoel didn't battle Roglic for it at the last corner, because he thought that the day had been taken by the break, and it hadn't. So even with radios, you can still make that mistake.
I think that was the day to Roy Ducati, I think it was.
I think it was.
Stage 8?
It was indeed. Yes, there had been a breakaway which had been caught, and Remco thought it was all over, so he just had to stay on the wheel of Roglic, believing that all the bonus seconds had gone. And then he found out afterwards he was more fed up about that than anything else in the race. But hey, 1 minute 55, so the climb has had an impact here, Pippa. It's had a narrowing of our breakaway and its distance from the chase.
I think this riding it looks more difficult than it is on paper. There's a lot of big long straights, and when it's like that, it tends to be steeper than the official profile. So it certainly looked harder than the climb of 5%.
I thought that too, particularly at the beginning. We don't have a full graphic on the test that we've just dealt with, but yeah, it was very steep at the beginning. It kind of looked about 10, possibly even 11% at that point. But
yeah, these type of climbs, they tend to if there's big long straights, it tends to be more than 4 or 5%. And just look at the speed, that we're given the graphic there of 22 kilometers an hour. That tends to suggest that it's 7-8% on certain sections. Then it'll kind of flatten out slightly with as a curve.
And here we are. This is our man, Matthias Grabis, just about to be reabsorbed. He lost out on the climb, but he's got bonus seconds. So provided he stays within the main bunch, he's going to get himself a decent finish. You may well even find him cropping up on the top 10 overall. This is beautiful. I want to know who it was that was tasked with taking all of the rocks from which they built this up the mountain. Absolutely glorious. It's almost fairy tale, isn't it?
It is. It reminds you a lot of Italy, where they tend to build villages on the top of hills and mountains, where unlike Belgium and Holland, where they tend to build cafes on top of hills and then have a bike race, here they tend to have monasteries and small villages. I think because quite often there's a lot of squabbling in historically over land, and various people invading them and being fought off.
Indeed. And the great baronnesses, which, yes, particularly with Italy, it took a long time for them to settle down. In fact, it was only when Mr. Garibaldi, he of the biscuits, when he came to prominence and united all of the dukedoms. But yeah, that alliance to the El Duce, or whatever your local baron was titled, sort of explains a lot of the psyche, but also the fact that we had citadels and fortified villages and the like. And of course, let's not gloss over the fact that this area's been troubled itself in the past. Thankfully, those days well and truly behind us, and it's now just once again a beautiful tourist destination that I strongly advise you to go to. It really is beautiful. You're going to see a lot of that here. Rudy Porter, I suspect that he's been called on to do quite a bit of this, quite frankly, which is pacing. And in fact, it's working. These guys, and the wind is picking up as well, as we suspected it might do in the afternoon. That's not just the helicopter rotors which are causing the swirling here. At least I don't think so anyway. If we do get some wind towards the end, that may well have an impact because it's quite wide open.
Yeah, we're heading back north again, so we headed down to Split, south of that second of the intermediate sprints, and now we're heading north again. And it is a wind from the northeast, about 10 to 15 kilometers an hour, so it's going to have an influence.
Minute and 33, and there is this King of the Mountains jersey up for grabs. I'm hoping that we get a full assembly of the points for you in a short while. That line drive, and it's Rivasi that wants it, and the way he's going for it, one suspects that he may well have an option when it comes to this a little bit later on. Cannot see the defined line, and we're not going to see it either from this angle. Oh. It's being feistily fought for, and that's nice. ATT Investments, Michael Sharan clearly knows where that line is drawn, and away he goes. And the man who started it off, Rivasi, has very much gone backwards. I don't know if that was ill timing or just hoping he could shake him off and be allowed to go for it. I'm wondering if this pair will drive on once we get there. And it's Raul Pierna who comes over the top. Still can't see where the mark is for the KOM. I believe that's it, the inflatable at the side of the road. And there's a gentleman in pale slacks with his camera phone. And there it is. Well, you know, provided we know, that's all that matters. Bavilacqua it is that takes the points here. Let's see what the assembly is for the climbs throughout the day before we run for home. And we'll be there in 46.7 kilometres time.
And I imagine those 47 kilometres are going to be done rather quickly. Unless I'd say about an hour from here to the finish. Given that back in the peloton there's not been, doesn't look like it's been too hard, and from now on, everybody gets a whiff of the sprints coming. Everybody knows that's going to happen, so it would just there'd be a bit more fighting for position.
Well, we know that sprint's coming, and you can see teams here already just taking on the last gels and indeed bottles of water. It looks like the water is the more important thing at the moment. And these two have just ridden on. They've got just over a minute and 20 on, and here it is. Bavilacqua takes 6 points ahead of Sharan and Garcia Pierna. I'd like the full assembly of the points through the day, to be honest, but anybody's guess. Minute and 35. Well, the opening stage has been a quiet one so far, but we are convinced that this is going to get very lively. And by the time we make a turn and come into town, the circuit itself is 25 kilometres in length. So in 20k's time, we'll be on the circuit. I think even I can work that one out. So yeah, we come by Sinch, and then we go off in a loop and we come back to town, albeit quite a big loop, to be honest. We're not going around the city itself, we're actually heading off into the countryside and then coming back. And in fact, the entry point into the circuit, we don't go over the finish line. If we were to, it'd have to be in reverse order. We pass very close by it, and then we head off in a big loop and come back to essentially about 100 metres away, possibly even less than that, from the entry point. You get the idea. And there'll be plenty of this for you to enjoy as well. It looks like, would you describe that as a watchtower or a water tower? I'm not quite sure. Let's find out, shall we? So, into town we come. Can you hear me searching? I've got to get this tower before it disappears. I think I've gone into it tomorrow, to be honest, on my tourist guide, which is very thorough, which explains why it's taking me so long. Ah, got it. This is the central building of the Marina Tower. What else? It was once accessed by a drawbridge in the 15th century, and the area of the marina was coming under a greater and greater threat from the Ottoman invasion. There you go. So the castle was built to defend its residents. And you may have noticed as well that it had a sort of a buttressed, expanded top to it. And within those vents, you could chuck stuff at those who were trying to sack your building. It was described as oil, but they didn't waste oil by throwing oil down onto their foes. It was a concoction that I don't really wish to describe to you, but let's just say it was homemade.
Are we saying it was organic?
It was very organic, and apparently they did used to heat it up before they chucked it. It's not the sort of stuff you'd like to bathe in.
Okay.
We'll leave it there, shall we? Minute 42. We always used to say, oh yes, they threw boiling oil. No, they didn't, because oil was extraordinarily valuable. It was something
else.
Far more toiletian. Let's leave it at that. 40 is your gap. So, absolutely no hurry back here. It's been a quiet day, but a lovely one. Well, it's a quiet day, I think it's fair to say. Stage 1 of the CRO race, and it's been a very beautiful one as well. And as the shadows get very, very long, you realise that we are heading to the end of the day, and we're expecting fireworks. We thought we might get them quite soon, but I think we're going to have to wait until we get to the circuit. So it may well be that the famous baked fish in lemon recipe comes to the fore.
I don't think there's going to be too much fighting for a while now. There's a couple of riders stopping for a comfort break there, which says that the atmosphere back in the peloton isn't exactly worried.
So you're asking me for the baked fish recipe? Thought you were.
No, actually, I'm not that much of a failed vegetarian.
Pescatarian, perhaps, but anyway. Yeah, if you ever get a chance to ask for baked fish here, please do so. It's a very simple dish, but it's absolutely impeccably done. They land the fish on the harbour side, and they actually make a foil pyramid. And literally, this is it. They just gut and dress the fish. So take the scales off it, but they leave the head and take out the guts. They wash it. Stick a lemon in its belly, along with a selection of vegetables that have been blanched. Some herbs and some salt, and then they make this pyramid and put it on the griddle. In the meantime, you've got just humble boiled potatoes and the rest of it. Now, it's not fancy at all. And quite frankly, I think sauces are a bit overrated sometimes, especially when the fish is as fresh and delicious as it is round here. And so you get this this foil pyramid that's presented on your plate with potatoes and this rather lovely wine that they have around here. It's a red wine. It's extraordinarily fruity. I wouldn't describe it as sweet by any means, but it's not dry either. Hearty would be the way. Full-bodied, I think some would call it, but it doesn't have those tannins. It's really very drinkable. Lovely. More towards a Pinot Noir, I would say, than anything heavier, like a Barolo. So anyway, yeah, and you tear it open and mash up your spuds and have it with the fish. It's a proper no-nonsense, lovely, lovely dish, and it's available absolutely everywhere on the coast. And of course, the coast makes up the vast majority of this nation, so you can always find yourself a really wonderful, freshly cooked meal for not very much money at all. So yeah, go and enjoy. I'd avoid the sausages. That's what I'm saying. Minute 56. And we are just under the 2 minutes mark before we are heading home. Yeah, I went to quite a strict hotel. You know, I was telling you about by some of the old school, and it was. They actually said to me, I went down for breakfast, and this woman said, "Why you stand here?" I thought it was a buffet, so went and sat down. And she comes over and she said, "You want peas?" What? Peas? I thought she meant beans. I said, beans on toast. She goes, "You want peas on toast?" Anyway, it was peas.
With vinegar?
No, with cut up bits of bacon belly in it, and it was actually really nice.
You're not selling it to me.
If slightly unexpected.
I think even at this stage of my life, I'd
Depends on how hungry you are.
I'd prefer not to have that experience.
That's where I go. But anyway, yeah, that was in Zagreb. So anyway, avoid that. Come out here. Be much nicer. Stick to your fish. Oh, that looked a bit challenging. I hope it's all right.
Well, that's one of the problems is the modern speed suit. There's no with the jersey and shorts separate. There's a bit of space for manoeuvring. What has to happen. If you to go with the speed suit and it's a long zip, you just spray in the zip. It goes
where it needs to.
Where it needs to.
There you have it. So sprinters, beware. Yes, the last thing you need is a delay. Let's put it that way.
But I think that that whole section there, that last couple of kilometres, kind of shows that there's no real worries back in the peloton. That everybody's fairly sure that there's going to be a catch made before the week. Well, maybe not when we get to the circuit, but during the circuit.
Well, it's a minute and 51. There's been virtually no change today. Can't really describe it as a slow motion day, but kind of tempted to. And the breeze is kicking up. You can see which side of the road is favoured for the time being. And if you're toddling along in the peloton, then life's not so bad. It will warm up for us in the next 15 kilometres or so. And in fact, you can see our destination up ahead. That's Zinch. Sort of a stone white, almost like chalk-like, it looks like some of the building blocks that they've hewn out. It's a famous building material, actually, chalk, back in the day, but not very secure. More on that in a moment. Blowing kisses is Alexander Kristoff, which I think is indicative of just how relaxed he is. I'm not quite sure whether it's going to be Alexander Kristoff today or David Bendixian. It depends on how giving Alexander Kristoff is. So here we are. We're going through the team right now of UNOX. It's quality here, Pippa.
It is. They've got good solid riders here, as they always come to these races with some kind of option. Whether it's going to be Alexander Kristoff, I imagine so. He's quite burly, so even though it's going to get hectic later on, he's big and strong enough to kind of, for those little annoying kind of Italian type kamikaze sprinters or people who think their sprinters are going to get 5th, 6th position if they follow the right wheels. They tend to bounce off a rider of his size.
I was in the Tour of Oman earlier on this year, and David Bendixian was very good for UNOX. I need to remind myself, I don't think Kristoff was there then. I'll have a look now. No, he wasn't, thanks to Pro Cycling Stats for that aid. Go and have a look at Pro Cycling Stats, actually. It really is brilliant. And indeed, they cover a lot of late races live. Unfortunately, this is one of those that it is not today. However, we shall see what gifts they offer us up deeper into this. But it's been a busy season for them, and everyone deserves a holiday. Our breakaway today, 3 now remain up the road. And I think it's going to go quiet for them late on. They possibly have ambitions that something strange might happen, but I just don't think that's going to be the case. That was Bevilacqua for Elo Cometa, just rolling through there. Also coming through is AT&T Investments in the red, as you've just seen, which was Michael Churan. And finally, just hoving into view here is your man, Garcia Piana from Equipo Kern Pharma. Do you know one of my pet hates in cycling is the word equipo and the word team? I mean, we know it's a team. Why tell us it's a team? And there's so many. Team Rinkoff Advarix, Team Jaco Alula, Team DSM, Equipo Kern Pharma. Come on, guys. No need to say that. Yeah, Jaco Alula is fine. Rinko Advarix is fine. Kern Pharma is fine. DSM Firmenich is fine. X Pro Cycling Team. Well, you don't say. They're on bikes and they look professional.
It's not like when you watch, I don't know, Match of the Day and it's Team Manchester United
Yeah,
comes out to
exactly.
play Team Chelsea. So
Pack it in.
It's one of those strange things to make it seem more. I think it's one of those things where somebody somewhere has thought it makes it sound more unified.
I guess
more important than it is.
Yeah, and I guess when you've got a commercial sponsor, this is their team. I understand that, but it doesn't help me, especially when the abbreviations include a T. No.
So just looking at this, it's still the same two riders on the front: Rudy Porter for Jaco Alula and Johan Price Pedersen, and they're just kind of strolling along, and the 5 riders in the front became 4, and that was become 3. We've lost Edward Ravazzi on that last hill. I think he overestimated his abilities and kind of led out the sprint for about 500 metres and blew completely. Now he's on his way back to the peloton.
Luke Platt, the Aussie champion, also seen there. We've got a few champions actually. Olas Aluar of Venezuela. Watch out for him, he's bright yellow. Unless they've gone and had their championships. I need to double check that they haven't actually done that, cheekily so. Sometimes they slot them in early. And of course, one of the earliest of all is usually down under. And Luke Platt, of course, is Australian champion. He rides for Ineos Grenadiers. Quinn Simmons wears Captain America. Outside bet for this race, and indeed could well be a feature, possibly not today, I wouldn't have thought. That'll be for Jon Aberastori and Tim von Teutenberg. Great name. I'll stop saying great name, I'll never say his name, but it's a great name. 96 seconds, that's all they've got. And there is a bit more pace. This is that pickup that we were expecting. Gentle downhill run into Zinch, then our loop, 25 kilometres, and then a winner and a leader of this race. Well, it's a proper pickup now. I'm just looking at the gap here. It's starting to narrow. .95 seconds, that's all we've got, Pippa.
Yeah, it's gradually going to come down just as 5 became 4, became 3, and next difficulty would probably become 2, and then they'll attack each other for the combativity prize and a visit to the podium for the flowers and the kisses. And this looks like it's going to be, even though it's not a traditional cycling country, it's going to be a race which is conducted under traditional cycling tactics.
Indeed. Well, the cycling starts pretty early. This was a little late call, don't forget, but the Tour of Langkawi is on, raging at the moment. Stage 5 is live tomorrow at 5:35 in the United Kingdom. So Brian Smith has already set his alarm for about 3:30 in the morning, where he'll have a lawn sandwich. I just know it. But yes, let's see.
I think you should explain what a lawn sandwich is for those who are not completely up to speed with Scottish delicacies.
Well, some of Scott's heritage as well popping out here. Yes, a lawn sausage is basically sausage meat shaped into a square form and cut into slices. You don't want sausages rolling all over the place if you're busy doing a Highland fling. So they designed sausages that wouldn't roll.
And they go into a roll.
They do. And if you ask for a lawn roll, is that what they call them?
No, you tend to ask just for a rolling sausage.
There you are.
And then you get as you described it, a squash sausage in a square shape.
Exactly. So Brian Smith will be up very early in order to have his lawn roll. And then he'll be doing the tour of Langkawi along with Rob Hatch. So tune in and enjoy that. Stage 5 tomorrow. 05:35 UK. There's a very narrow gap. It's just over 800 metres, and there was a change of pace. There's a danger they'll be caught too soon. The remnants of our breakaway, just 3 riders up the road, and all the work today has been done by Jayco and indeed Bahrain Victorious. In fact, Jayco have really sacrificed themselves, and Rudy Porter in particular has been extremely busy for them. Meanwhile, they do have some options, possibly not Zagbu Gourmet this time, although he's had a kick on him in the past. I think their man is Campbell Stewart. Zagbu may well be part of the lead out for them, and we're going to be pondering the teams that will make a big noise later on today, and at this pace in about an hour. Don't worry, it'll speed up. Cairo Rao, they'll be looking for Yuri Leitao, Olius Alois. Leitao climbed very well actually in Slovakia, so I think it might be that Leitao needs a bit more of a kind of a lumpy day. He sprints up a ramp nicely is what I'm trying to say. Elo Cometa, well, they've got a couple of options. They had Bevilacqua up in the break. They'll be working for Giovanni Lunardi today. Mirko Maestri, rhymes with pastry, may well indeed be doing his lead out. Not sure, but I think that's the way it's going to be. They could exchange favours. You could say the same potentially for Tobias Lund and Pavel Bittner. Bittner's more of the sprinter, but Tobias Lund is, well, he's more of a favoured man for the overall as well. In help, I reckon, for Oscar Onley. I think Tobias Lund is going to be their man today. That would make sense. Likewise, Eli Viviani. However, if every second counts for Ethan Hayter, could Eli Viviani for Ineos Grenadiers turn lead-out man? No, I think he'd like, quite frankly, to get a win out of this season, and would like that to be today. So I reckon Ethan Hayter might even lead in Elia Viviani. They've also got Luke Plapp, Josh Tarling, Connor Swift, Magnus Sheffield, and Luke Rowe, of course. My goodness, that's a hell of a team Ineos Grenadiers have sent here, isn't it?
It certainly is. On paper, it's one of the strongest teams alongside Bahrain Victorious. You wonder if Ethan Hayter's in good enough form at this stage in the season. He's not been great so far. He's had a number of crashes where he's broken bones. So another one of those riders kind of on the comeback trail. Kind of traditionally in this type of race, he's been able to get over the climbs and take bonus seconds and sometimes win these kind of 5-6 stage races. We'll have to wait and see how this goes on the climbs and where he is. So far, he's been pretty quiet up to this stage of the season.
Yeah, Viviani, I think, is going to have the sort of ultimate lead-out train, really. I imagine that Luke Rowe will get involved, but Connor Swift, Magnus Sheffield, Ethan Hayter, and then Viviani sounds about right to me. And if that is indeed the case, Viviani has got a magic carpet ride today. Here's Quinn Simmons just shooting the breeze, as you can see, back with Q. I bet that's Corey Davis that he's having a chat with from Q365. But Quinn Simmons himself with that Captain America kit, rather like it. Reminds me of Skillshare Shimano actually back in the day.
It's a great jersey. I think if you're going to go with that look, you should have the whole thing: the helmet, the bike, the stars and stripes everywhere. Maybe some shoes painted up. Not white shorts, so I think that would take it slightly too far.
And no shield. You don't want that. Full Captain America.
I think we've kind of lost that flamboyance now that Mario Cipollini's kind of disappeared. We've kind of dialed back the kind of, how can I say it, cartoon references.
Yeah.
Superheroes.
Yeah, indeed. Super Mario and the like. Mind you, if you're into your gaming, Kirby, the big pink blob. I'll say no more. Go and look it up. 30. In fact, don't. Spare my blushes. 32.8 kilometres from home. That is probably down with the kids. Looking down this line here. So Jayco stalking but also leading, and in a Jayco sandwich at the moment, the filling is Bahrain victorious with Mati Moric, defending champion, Goretzka and indeed Burati. What about Lidl and Aberystwyth today? Lidl Trek, Jon Aberystwyth, not quite as durable as he used to be, and indeed if they were hoping to do it today with Jon Aberystwyth, I think they'd be punishing absolutely everybody, spanking it pace-wise. It might happen. If you see Lidl Trek come to the fore, it's a wear-down process because they don't want a bunch sprint. They want Jon Aberystwyth to be in a more selective sprint. Might happen. They might also run for Tim Ton Teutenberg, but I don't think he's got the wind in his legs at this level. Not when you've got Ethan Hayter out there, Alexander Kristoff, the aforementioned, who himself. He's got Jonas Abrahamsen and Lloyd Ben Dixon of Dock Green. But of course, that's going back. But yes, Alexander Kristoff will indeed be a man today. Look, not much is happening. Except in my mind. YOLO with Giovanni Lonardi, YOLO Cometa. Yep, I think it's him. Burati or Matthias Goretzka. Let's have a look for Mati Mohoric today. I'm just thinking back to Bahrain now. Burati, I think Mohoric might want a decent position. It could all be about protection, and therein lies a conundrum today. It's a straight road to 3Ks, and it'll be pretty much similar surface and indeed width to what we're dealing with at the moment. It doesn't really start to waver about until we get to 1,500 metres to go, and then we've got a roundabout at 750, another little turn at 500. We don't actually see the finish line proper until 250 metres to go. Sometimes when you get a shrouded finish like that, Pippa, it can be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, it can be, and it's going to be really hectic because there's been no real efforts made back in the peloton. So going in, there'll be a fight to the 3 kilometres for the GC riders, and I think that's maybe why we see Jayco they've got Eddie Dunbar on the back of the line. Lidl the same, they're going to keep their GC option kind of out of trouble for the moment, but it's from 10k to 3k, I imagine there's going to be a full-on race just to get to that 3 kilometre mark. And then after that, some of the riders can relax, but the sprinters team certainly can't. I can see Ineos Grenadiers kind of leading out from about 4 kilometres out. They've got the firepower to pin everybody in position and hopefully put one of their, Ethan Hayter or like you say, Viviani to take the win. Personally, I kind of see more Viviani following Hayter than the other way around. Viviani has not got he hasn't had a great kind of reputation of leading out other people. So I imagine that Ethan Hayter will be slightly more used to the what's going to happen in this. It's going to be really hectic those last couple of kilometres because everybody's so fresh, and now that the peloton can see the escape in the front, they know they're going to take them back just by that kind of natural wearing down process.
Somebody's going to reach out and go long. I'm not quite sure who it's going to be yet, but Aulus Alouar finished second behind Jeffrey Soup in the run to Oliva in Spain, the Vuelta. It was stage 7. It was a big surprise that day. There was basically a pilot. Caden Groves got himself boxed out of position. There was a few that went straight on when they perhaps shouldn't have done. Gonzalez was widely blamed for Caja Rural. He's not here, Gonzalez, but Aulus Alois is, and he'll be hungry. I haven't actually seen Aulus Alois, I must admit, just recently. I'm hoping that it does make a big noise for me a little bit later on, especially as I've given him the big billing. Just double checking. Yes, he is here. You know, you have to double. He was second behind Jeffrey Soup, that famous win, which was some surprise wins. But he was also sixth on the run to Tarragona. Caden Groves, Milano, Ed Turns, we had Milan Menton and Gestel. Alois was right there, finishing in front of some very, very strong riders. So my belief is that Alois is going to want to continue that sort of rise, which he's displayed the ambition, and I think he is going to be one of those, say it quietly, who's possibly going to be dive bombing on that roundabout. There you are. He should be in bright yellow. I need to check in, and I will do in a moment, that indeed, as we come over this hippodrome, that he is indeed still, I'm not quite sure when the Venezuelan championships are. Now, how did I know that was a hippodrome? Trotting. Huh. Yeah. When you go round and round like this in a very, very hard formation, it's usually a trotting race. Little buggy, trained horse that goes trotting. It's good sport. 28 kilometres to go. They've got a minute. The last three amigos of our breakaway, and it'll be for that combativity award. I haven't seen that there is one in this race, to be fair, and we're still waiting for our King of the Mountains decision as well. We'll get there. 6 stages this late in the afternoon. Not all 6 today, of course, but long shadows, and it's feeling very autumnal, despite the fact it's full of colour. That's certainly how you can view it. And we're getting to that golden hour, aren't we, where the colours are beautiful.
I think what you're avoiding saying, it's got a feel of holiday camp about it slightly.
It has.
Yeah. But that's just that natural thing for late September sunshine.
It's the best time to go.
You can feel winter's coming, and you can holding on to that little bit of heat on your back now and again. That happens now and again. I
like that variation. I don't like the out-and-out scorch of summer. I find spring as well. Everyone goes, "Oh yes, spring, isn't it amazing? That's the best season." Not for me. Spring is a bit bare. The trees are still very much looking quite forlorn. Autumn for me is just the best season. I was once told that that's a very optimistic view on life. If you love autumn, you're not fearful of the inevitable. But yeah, I do. I love it. I think it's just it's got a warmth about it. It's fantastic. It's just lovely. And we're going to race it. We're coming into town onto our circuit. Now we'll be passing very close by our finish. Don't worry, you're not going to have that rather confusing sort of series of kilometre counters, because we do not cross what would be, I guess, a start-finish line, even in reverse. But effectively, if we did, it would be in reverse. Imagine if it was over in Lidl's car park there on the right. That's the idea. In fact, it might be. Because we're actually passing by the finish line on our right-hand side. So yes, we're sort of squeezing into town and out again. So here we are. We come to a hoarded section, which, careful, goodness me, what is going on? Well, I know there's an intermediate sprint, for goodness sake, but hey, that looked a bit dangerous to me. Just cutting up the inside, certainly a trackage reminder of who's where. Chiran is going to come home to take this one, get himself some bonus seconds and skittle on. I was a bit nervous of that, I don't mind telling you.
I thought he was going to see another crash into the barriers incident there, like when we saw with Stephen Cook at the Euros. I don't think that would have been a move appreciated by his temporary companions there.
It was dangerous, wasn't it? I'm not just being crazy.
No, that was yeah, bad. If I was with the, if you were in that situation as a rider, that was a bad thing to do. Slightly too desperate.
Well, I guess he will say he got the job done, but that did not rest comfortably with either of us. So we've been. Fireworks have gone off on the chapel at the top there. At least I hope that's what it was. It's supposed to be a display. And now then, any words passing between them along the lines of, what the hell were you thinking of?
I think they're all going to learn a new swear word from whatever language they need to communicate there.
Well, the thoughts were being passed on in no uncertain terms there from Raul Pierna. And the bad boy of the feast at the back here has certainly got an earful, let's put it that way, and I'm not surprised. And I imagine there'll be a few words. I mean, is that the sort of thing that could draw a fine?
No, because there was no bouncing over each other, so it was dive bombing, outside of criterium races or some, the classics where you have to really fight for position. It doesn't usually happen that often.
Yeah, that was it.
Certainly not. The 25 kilometers to go in the first day of a 6-day stage races, and there's only 3 of you in the front, so it's kind of one of those strange things to do. Obviously, he'd been told that you had to go into that corner and then out of it first to reach its sprint, but I'm sure he could have done it in a slightly more polite fashion.
Well, time to race on. So we're on our circuit. We're coming out of Zinch. I'm sure you'll see the public park here where you can go and play petanque, buy yourself a bit of cake. Almond cake in these parts, very nice. Yes. Well, this is here we are. He still hasn't dared come through. He still wants to have another word here. Does Raul Pierna? And they're together. Oh, in fact, they're off camera. Look, still getting the verbals.
I think they're going to, the two Pro Tour teams are going to make their feelings felt for the continental level rider.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, let's see. If they want to stay in this breakaway, they've only got 35 seconds, for goodness sake. I think this is more or less done and dusted. They're not being deliberately caught, but all of the... Gosh, there is a stiff wind here. It's a shame we're not going up there, Pippa.
Well, you say that Clive Calton as a climber. At my stage of my career, I'm quite happy to stay down the bottom of hills like this nowadays. I think we can see there the following cars were pulled up from behind the escape, and they know it's over for them. And I think the collaboration is finished after that move from Schuren, so they're going to go back into the peloton and try and survive to the finish in amongst them.
Eric Vetter just being drawn up here. This is Matthias Stosik, as you can see, who is the Serbian champion from ATT Investments. And they're all getting very much bunched together. There's a danger in that in itself. Rolling terrain as we enter and indeed start to properly get immersed in this circuit that we're dealing with. It's been a busy day for the man who's been doing the pacing, Rudy Porter, for Team Yoko Alula up front. He's taken on that burden. Further back, Tanguy Gourmet is just heading a group of Jayco riders in the blue and white. You can see the pale blue of Yolo Kometa. They've had a man with Bavilacqua up the road, but Mirko Maestri and Giovanni Lunardi are their choices. I'm not sure who Kern Farmer are going to go for, but Roger Adria he's got a bit of a turn of pace about him, to be honest, and he is their overall hope. But I'm not quite sure whether he's going to have the kick for today. He's more of a climber than anything else. Yuri Leitao is the choice for Cairo Rural. Campbell Stewart. Now, this is the man that they are desperate to deliver. They've got Eddie Dunbar to worry about as well. But Campbell Stewart, on his day, can actually make a big noise. He went to the Giro d'Italia. Hasn't actually, to be fair, done much this year as Campbell Stewart. In fact, much of his success has come from down under. But in this company, he is a sprinter. He's got to kick the 25-year-old, and he might just have a dig if they're not looking after Eddie Dunbar too closely. Let's see. Govechka and Borati for Bahrain victorious. Mate Mohoric, I keep reminding myself that he's going to be there, and I think he might be, but possibly not winning a sprint, because we've got the likes, of course, of Ethan Hayter, who of the GC men is probably the quickest, I would say, but they've got Eli Viviani of Indus Grenadiers to go for it. Aberastorio at Teutenberg, I keep saying. Who haven't I mentioned? Pippo 14 of Maloya Push Bikes. Yeah, they've got what looks like an incident in a fabric dye factory, and they couldn't decide what colour to choose. There it is. You can see number 152 there, Philip Weber. He's just being streamed at the moment by the treble one Carol Camarda. CAMRDA. I mean, I'm tempted to call him Camadra, but that would be fine, because that's the wrong order. But anyway, ATT Investments, he's their principal. And pick the bones out of that, quite frankly. Who are you going for today? Are you sticking with Viviani, did you say?
I'm sticking with Ethan Hayter. I think, yeah, I can see. Actually, I noticed that when Ineos moved up there, that for once they hadn't left Ethan Hayter down the back, or he'd chosen to actually follow his teammates. So they had the 7 riders in a row with Ethan Hayter on the back, which for him is quite rare. Normally he kind of surface the peloton on his own, but it looks like actually he is going to pay proper attention today.
Bouncing nicely over the rises and falls here. And there is our break. I was going to say they'll shake hands in a few moments' time, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, two of them will shake hands on that.
Yes, I think that's the case. A little bit of break up, so let's get back and have a look at our Primmerston Old Town, which is where we started today. And the wind really has picked up. There's a little bit of debris out and about here as well. Now it's a northeasterly, so that means obviously on a circuit we're going to get it in all different kinds of ways, but it will be a crosswind on our approach, which won't be terribly nice. This is normally where we get up to what we refer to as approach speed, which normally is a bit faster than this. So I'm trying to see which direction the wind is actually coming to them. If they constantly turn like this, ultimately it will be in their face, which possibly explains the pace that we're dealing with at the moment. But it's certainly getting lively here, Pippin.
Yeah, so for the moment it's been a headwind, and then we'll take a right-hand turn in about 5 kilometres or so, maybe even closer. And then there might be a bit of side wind, but it looks like it's going to be in a valley again. And then kind of turn again right, and we come back down towards Finch, and that ought to be a kind of cross tailwind, kind of from the side, from the back, so kind of side wind from the back down that valley, and then kind of same again from the other side as they head into Cinch in those last, about 4 kilometres or so. But I don't think that the wind would make a difference. So those riders have been out there all day in the break, back in the peloton. Everybody looks so fresh that I can't imagine a 15 kilometre an hour wind is going to make much difference to them.
Here's Cinch International Airport. This is what it would look like if you were coming in on a Hercules troop transporter. Land anywhere. There, a nice description of our helicopter that we are using today. Just a few moves being made now, quietly so, at least for now, by Ineos Grenadiers. Nothing too dialed in and focused, just for the time being. And that makes sense. Kern Farmer moving up. This is for Roger Adria, looking after him. They've got Igor Arieta, Berardi, and of course they had a man Peona up in the breakaway, but it'll be looking after Roger Adria. For ATT Investments, well, they've got a couple of options. It'll depend on who has got through the day in the best fashion, but here comes Team DSM. Now, Tobias Lund will be their man, the Great Dane. Pavel Bittner is here as well, and the men in the navy blue are making a proper fist of this. And as we said, the approach pace would be set by Sagbul Gamay. He's doing a great job of it in the blue and white of Jaco on the left-hand side of the road. Bahrain, well, they've been up close towards the 4 for much of the day, and a little bit of a help yourself there. Mate Mohoric just leaning in, and I'm afraid I was trying to see who he actually got into there. I think it was Travis Stedman of Q365, the South African champion. But Luke Plapp, the Aussie champion as well, also very much installed. And this is where, well, we said 18 kilometres to go is where we get approach pace. This is more than that. This is full chat, and it's because of the wind that they are racing for this. This is fantastic, Pippin.
Yes, and that was kind of finally sparked into life a little bit of fight for position. Maybe this, in the road book, it's not exactly the most detailed road book, so we don't know where the kind of pinch points are going to be. But that we want to be at the front. Speed has started, and only the strongest teams are going to survive. Interesting, you can see Ineos sitting back and we're kind of watching what's happening at the moment, and then I can't imagine they won't get involved until well inside the last 10 kilometres.
Well, they're boxing for the centre of the road at the moment. And Team DSM, they have the youngsters come up from the development programme. Frank van den Broek. Be interesting to see how he goes. But it's Oscar Onley who is their hero for this race. And he's no sprinter, but he's a great climber, the 20-year-old. Let's see. Pace change entirely, and now if they used one man throughout the day, they're all involved. This is for Eddie Dunbar, but also for Stuart Campbell, give him a chance for the Jaco Alula men. And we're on that ring road, the golden shoulders here of Luke Platt, just getting himself up and into position. And this is maybe the longest lead out you can possibly imagine. They've got the firepower to do it in his Grenadiers, and they're now getting themselves into a safe place. And the hope is that Ethan Hayter is not still meerkatting at the back.
I think we will have to see some close-up shots to see where Ethan Hayter's disappeared to. Normally when they put the Luke Plapp on the front, it shows they've got a lot of intention to what happens in the final of a race.
Well, just tucked in behind him, I believe, is Luke Rowe. So it's Luke's 1 and 2. That's the opening psalms. Meanwhile, looking further back, we see Captain America, Quinn Simmons, is getting himself up. This is working on behalf of Jonna Barastori. Tom Teutenberg will be on Quinn Simmons' back wheel. 16.7 kilometres to go. This is a hairy pace, and there's a lot left in the legs after what's been a quietish day today. Nice, big, high-paced approach. Loving it. Working the centre line, and I must say I can't see Ethan Hayter just yet. I hope that's not in at the back. If indeed he's supposed to be up to the front, let's wait and see. Eli Viviani just wants a look-see, shakes his head for some strange reason. Not quite sure what that is about. In fact, Magnus Sheffield also in the vanguard here. And also showing their hand for the first time is Uno X, with Ben Dixon leading out Alexander Kristoff today, possibly the other way round. We'll wait and see. Kristoff looked incredibly relaxed earlier on, but then again, so did the Vikings just before they knocked on your front door back in the day. Let's see.
So I can see the wind coming from the right-hand side of the peloton, so that's why there's a little bit of pressure there. So you had Girmay for Jaco Alula versus Luke Platt for Ineos, and one side of the road and the other.
Well, on the right-hand side of the roads, you saw as well Luke Rowe just on the radio. That was probably saying, Ethan, where are you, mate? Still at the back for the time being. He is renowned on occasion to be out of position. Let's wait and see. And
you can see him there. He's about 8 riders from the back, where he kind of normally dangles. And,
it's not a great place to be if it does get a bit skirmishy up front, but I don't know. There is Ethan Hayter. And so do you think that radio call was for him? Time to get your backside up here, mate.
Yeah, I would imagine so. You know, if you look, you've got Luke Plapp and then you've got Magnus Sheffield on the left of the screen there. So, you know, their own position. Normally, Luke Rowe doesn't have to go back and get Ethan Hayter. But,
it's a visit from the headmaster if he does.
Yes, I can imagine there's been occasions when that's happened and he's been admonished, and now they just leave Ethan Hayter to kind of work his way up to the front.
Well, wearing number 12 there on the right hand side of the road is numbers that just revealed to you now. That is Luke Rowe. He was the one that was on the radio a few moments ago asking Ethan Hayter, where is he? Actually didn't take account of where Eddie Viviani is either. There is Ethan Hayter. Maybe he's just not going to be part of proceedings today. 14 Ks to go. He's still got plenty of time to move up, but he's going to have to make that move ultimately. Bryce Pedersen at the back here. A leggy character. And Martin Pedersen as well. It's the Pedersen family towards the rear. And back in towards town. We're almost at the apex of this circuit as we will loop back and indeed head in a clockwise fashion all the way back to our finish line. A lot of space opening up in the centre of the road, and this is space that's automatically filled, as you can see, by Yolo Cometa with Mirko Maestri and Giovanni Lunardi for them. And trying to move up is indeed in fact, I was just about to say, I think that might have been, yeah, it was Ethan Hayter just trying to get himself into a better position. There's a lot of riders on not much road, and moving up is not an easy task.
Well, it's not an easy task for some riders when they don't have the ability or they're slightly, intimidated. I don't think, for a World Tour rider to be in this position, it's not that big a peloton, so to get to the front when they head back, they take another turn and head back into town when the road opens up, I don't think that's going to be too hard.
Well, there he is, number 11, Ethan Hayter, just keeping it quiet still for the time being, along with Bevilacqua, who's in the break earlier on. And it's a busy road as it stands. Nobody up front just for now, and still no sign of UNOX getting themselves fully assembled up front. So if we're looking for a lone rider at the moment, let's start looking for the team of the lipstick and custard colours of UNOX. We have Louis Bendixson and Alexander Kristov, who looked extremely relaxed earlier on, and I think he's about to get moody. And here come those yellow helmets right now. It wasn't going to be long before UNOX got to the front. They're moving up here, Pippa.
So they I think everybody knows that they're going to have to go into the last 10 kilometres or so in a really good position. Once we swing south again, it becomes a tailwind and the speed will go up even further. There's a slight lull at the moment because it's uphill and nobody really kind of has to push on that hard, so they're all just kind of holding position.
Elia Viviani is at the back of the line of Ineos Grenadiers riders, not terribly well defined from UNOX. Now they've gone more red, or indeed from Bahrain Victorious that sits centre of the road with their blue sleeve caps and golden helmets. Even their own team were telling me that they have to look for their socks. They've got blue socks to define them sometimes. Unfortunately, Ineos Grenadiers and Bahrain Victorious went for a very similar colour palette. A lot of red this year. I remember a lot of black in the past. Indeed, some teams holding on to some design cues from the old Sky days. But let us head for town then. 12.4. There is the absolute nadir, the top of our circuit. Time to come home. So you can see it's not exactly flat. So at the sort of pace we're now suddenly engaged with, there's a little drift and a magnification there of just what you have to deal with constantly.
Yeah, so one of the Yolo Cometa riders going slightly offline. Looks like he kind of bounced off of Luke Plapp, so that was a wake-up call for a couple of them.
Certainly was. And a little pinch point over the bridge. Now Luke Plapp sort of looks over, still hurling abuse. And indeed, Bahrain also looking over as if to say, he's not talking to me, he's talking to you. Yes, some messages have been delivered. Well, we did say that there was a potential for dive bombing today, not least on our approach. Let's just describe it to you very briefly, shall we? So we come in Arrow Straight, more or less. The road does waver a little bit, like a wiggling arrow on release. I'll stick with it. About 1,700 metres to go, we have a right-hand turn. I believe it's into a square and out of one. Then at the Flamme Rouge, the road is gently bending to the left, but we slam into 250 metres later a roundabout, which will kill the speed completely, and it's worth dive bombing into it if you think you can get away with it. I think I'm not advising anyone to do this. That's at 750 metres to go. At 500 metres, we introduce ourselves to a gentle right-hand turn, and at 300 metres, we have just completed a gentle left-hand turn before suddenly we turn right, and at 230 metres, we see for the first time the finish line. So it has a late visual. Now you're on the roller coaster coming in. We've got under 11 kilometres to go. This is hardly full chat as we speak. If this was a highway finish, we'd be talking about 60 kilometres an hour already. Well, we're tracing the river, and as you can see, it's not fast flowing, and neither is the peloton as we speak. Just under 11 kilometres to go. It's cagey as you like, this, Philip.
It is. Nobody's really committed to it at the moment. So the riders on the front row kind of thinking, right, this is the speed I want to go. Do you want to go any faster? And when you look across and you see the other one's face, you're thinking, well, they've got the same idea. They don't want to go any much faster than this. So it's kind of holding that uncomfortable speed of not completely flat out, but fast enough to discourage anybody from coming up the outside.
Well, as we come down off the sort of gentle plane that we were on, this evokes a bit more pace. And as you can see, it's probably picking up right now. 10 kilometres to go, and the road gets more significant as we come closer to town. So we're coming out of off the country roads, if you will, and into town at pace. And we're tracing it rather beautifully here as well to give you a sense of indeed the Vitesse that we're dealing with at the moment. There's a few teams that are locked out of this, and they're not going to be overly delighted by it. Some of the smaller teams will leave it to just single riders to go for it. There's Alois, finally picked him out in his Venezuelan jersey. He's been extremely quiet all day. It's as bright yellow as you could possibly imagine. Don't go thinking it's Luke Platt. He's got himself a sash upon his back. There it is, sort of blue hips to him. If you see, that's Alois, and he can go very, very quickly. I think it's possibly have to have been a tougher day, but he's a great bike handler, so he can skirmish when we get to those twists and turns at the very last. So watch out for Aulus Alois. Apparently they're working for Yuri Leitao, but if Alois has got a big bragging rights, a big claim to the title overall, and he has, I think it might work for him. As Johan Price Pedersen, we mentioned him earlier, just off the back, having done his chasing job. No more left for him. And where, we're asking ourselves, and the team are probably asking the same, is Ethan Hayter. He's stuck at the back, pace has changed, there's not much room to move up, as the camera will describe to you. Look at that. But he's not, oh he is, he's still here. This suggests to me it's going to be Eli Viviani today.
No, I still believe that Ethan Hayter will move up on his own, and suddenly you'll find him in the right position about 3-4 kilometres to go. You suddenly appear in the back of that Ineos line. They might question where he is at the moment, but I think they're going to trust him enough to do what he has to do on his own.
Viviani's just off the bottom of your screen at the moment, number 13. You'll see him in a few moments' time. Sitting plumb in front of him right now is Luke Rowe. And so it's, in fact, he's got another rider here with Connor Swift. There is Viviani, right at the back of his own train. Now, often if you are the favoured rider, you have somebody acting wheel guards just on your back wheel, but he's got nobody, Viviani.
Yeah, he hasn't got what we tend to call the sweeper that stops other sprinters taking that position and following him and profiting from a really powerful lead out like Ineos have.
Well, they're not hanging around, and if Ethan Hayter is going to make a move, it has to be now. Road surface, as you can see, is just starting to smooth, getting slightly wider. No paving for us to trouble us here, so difficult to walk on as a pedestrian. Right now, the pace is anything but pedestrian. 7.5 kilometres to go, and we are just tracing the river into town. A bit more space now, just opening up.
Yeah, so if you look, quite often in this type of valley, it's a gentle descent, so this will be faster and faster. The river's running downhill, so that means the road's running slightly downhill as well. And, they should get faster and faster from now on.
Still Viviani, just looking to see who's on his back wheel, and it's Christian Corran of Adri Mobile, who is trying to muscle in onto that particular train. There's a few others that want to play that game. Pavel Bittner is coming up here, and he's leading in Tobias Lund. So Bittner there, number 36. Lund's just lost his man, and indeed 3 riders slot into that place. That's how quickly you can get out of shape. At a moment like this, you've got a crash, and a big one as well. Well, getting out of shape, we were talking about it as the road went one way and the other. Centre of the road is where the main action, the tragic action here has happened. Little Trek have been hampered, few others as well, and there'll be a few that have been caught out further behind, I'm afraid. Not a nice sight at all, and that is Mate Mohoric, who's been caught up in it. So it's not going to be Mate Mohoric, which leads it to Goretzka and Borati later on. How much longer has he got, he says. He wants to know what's the difference from home, and he needs to get back in because this is before the 3 kilometres to go marker, and any time he loses now and the pace is up, it could actually strike him out overall. This is not the time to have this sort of thing happen. Let's have a look over the top. Little bit of paving and, touch of wheels, and down they go. Skittles. Yeah. So who else was caught out?
So that your other rider touched the Jaco rider in front of him and went down from about, I'd say, 10th position or so, right in the middle. So that's going to take out a lot of the favourites.
Centre of the road as well, and it looks like Ineos Grenadiers. Where are you, said Luke Rowe, immediately wanted to know where Ethan Hayter, and there is Ethan Hayter zigzagging through the debris of those who are on the deck. Well, it's strung out. Ethan did not get caught out by it. I guess he was far enough back to avoid it.
Yeah, so the biggest casualty there was Mate Mohoric, and I imagine that most of the Bahrain victorious riders are going to go back for him. They'll leave one rider up here to maybe do the sprint, pay attention, but everybody else is going to have to go back for the last year's race winner.
Goretzka had stayed here. He's wearing number 5, and it's Borati who is going to be the man that they're working for. But that has all fallen to pieces. Nico Borati is in about wheel 7 at the moment. A little bit of elbows coming out here as well. I think Fran Mihailovic may well also be there, not quite sure. But now it's all down to Ineos Grenadiers. You saw that Luke Rowe was on the blower asking for Ethan Hayter to get up to the front. Not quite sure whether he's going to make it on. Still haven't seen him. He's trying to work his way through at the moment. I think he's still screened. Let's wait and see. In fact, he's out of it. Here he is.
It's Mohoric as well.
Mohoric, I beg your pardon, is out of it. The number 1. He's desperately trying to get himself back in. To what cost, though? That's the point. This isn't about winning the day for him. This is about not losing any seconds on the pack. So he's invoked in his own sprint right now, Pippa.
Yeah, so they're going to have to send some help from here, because he's about 150 metres off the back of the peloton, and which is shedding riders one by one. So he doesn't want to get caught in what we call the barrage, where they leave big gaps in the race convoy. I'm surprised he's actually on his own. He's actually got teammates with him.
I think the problem is they've got an option here with Goretzka and Borati up front. They made that decision to lead them out there. If anyone drops back, they're not going to help him. He's going to sail straight by them. They would have to be going this pace, just a little bit less, and then have something less to put left to push on. Tolok comes back into it as well, and still we have Bahrain victorious. This is a good news in a bad situation for UNOX. I did not see if Alexander Kristoff was caught up in that. No, Kristoff is actually part of this group as well. Looming large, could be a day for him. Looks like it's going to be Christoph versus Viviani. If Hayter has got back up, we'll wait and see. 3.2 kilometres to go, and so Town, Duff, Beck and Taluk trapped, I'm afraid. Few others. This is Roger Adria. That's not good news for him either. He was a big favourite from Mikipo Kern-Farmer, and in this company would have had hopes. He's tagging onto the back wheel of Mate Mohoric, and he's 30 seconds in arrears. That's time that's difficult to find on this course of the CRO race, I'm afraid, because there's one big day where you'd have to make a big old difference. Steaming up through the centre come Vosta ATS. They'll have some hopes. Euro Cometa have showed how willing they are to mix it. Vosta ATS with Gravish, you may remember he did a bit of dive bombing earlier on today. He's going to have another opportunity in a short while, because there's a big right-hander coming up in about a kilometre's time, actually. And then, of course, we've got that pesky roundabout with 750 metres remaining.
Yes. You could see back there when Mohoric chased for a while, and then you realised that he wasn't going to come back. You know, there's too many riders sitting up and letting the wheels go. So they're scooping up these riders who've sat up, but he's probably going to lose a minute and a half by the finish.
Well, it's Mihailovic that's dropped back for him, but there's no sight of them. And of course, they're exchanging up front. They've had a quiet day. It suddenly got very, very loud for Mate Mohoric, the defending champion. Hoboing on his wheel is Pietro, the Italian from Euro Cometa. And a look behind here, and it looks like Mohoric has actually just almost sat up. So here we go. Big turn being imposed here by Uno X. Ben Dixon doing a nice job. At the back here is Alexander Christoph. 1,600 metres to go. 37 seconds back to Mohoric. Well, if that's damage limitation, it's not working for him. That's the right-hander, but there is a very, very big roundabout to come up at the moment. And I've got to say that in a great place right now is Alexander Christoph. And in fact, it looks like it's been slightly shredded as far as Ineos Grenadiers are concerned. Is Ethan Hayter up here? That's the question I'm asking myself. And the answer is no. Viviani's still in here, though, and he's still boxing it, trying to box clever. Luke Plapp has now disappeared, but it's Connor Swift that's leading Viviani in. Magnus Sheffield making sure that he's going to have a good finish here as well, but it looks like it's Viviani against Tobias Lund against Alexander Christoph. Let's wait and see. So time to go right now, and Viviani's got the ultimate lead out. No sign of Ethan Hayter. It's going to be Viviani who is the choice here. Lund on his backside, and indeed there as well, as you can see. In fact, that's Pavel Bittner, I beg your pardon, by the looks of things. What's Christoph got here? They come around this roundabout. Christoph just opens his mouth. Now going to open his legs here, but Viviani's gone for this. He's got the release. It's 150 metres, 50 to go. Here comes everybody else. Viviani, will he hold on? Not on the throw. Who's going to get there? Oh, Viviani just holds on by the looks of things. But it's going to go to the photo. The hands go up in celebration by Ineos Grenadiers. I'm not sure that was the battle plan, but it looks like Viviani got there. But we must wait for the photo.
Yeah, that looked like it was going to be a really, really. I think Viviani looks like he got about a rim or so 10 centimeters, but it was certainly getting closer and closer as the line approached.
And this is a terrible sight for Mate Mohoric. Outside of 3 kilometres, it was at 6 kilometres he was involved in the crash, and away he goes. The camera called out, and I'm afraid that Mate Mohoric, clock tolling against him, 46, 47, 48. As you can see, it's a 49-second gap for him. That's time not easily found on this course of this race, Pippa.
No, it's not, and it's such a shame because he looks like he's in really good shape as well, and he didn't look like he'd been injured in that fall, so maybe just got held up for when he hit the ground. He doesn't look like he's got too many holes in his clothing, so we'll have to see what kind of injuries he sustained.
Well, we still wait. We wait to find out who indeed is our winner as confirmation, but it looks to me like it is Viviani. We'll wait for the photo in a few moments' time. Some busy riders out there. and some of those who've done their job of just marshalling the day. Tomorrow, more of a sprint-focused day, I would say, and our run to Novalia, and then the terrain really does roll. Well, the camera's picking out Eli Viviani. I think we can be convinced that he is the man. Connor Swifted, a great lead in for him. And there we are, stage winner and race leader, Elia Viviani. Pippa, he needed that.
He did, and in circumstances put him in that position. Yeah, I think without that fall, there'd have been a lot more riders involved in the sprint. It's one of those things that happen after a relatively easy day back in the peloton. The last pinch point, which was that crash right at the front of the peloton. So, Ineos found themselves in a really good position after that. I wouldn't say they accelerated afterwards, but they didn't slow down, and nobody's going to wait for the riders who've fallen inside that last 6-7 kilometers. So a shame for Bahrain and Matej Mohoric, but joy for Ineos Grenadiers.
And all the work coming after it, as it does after all the work that they did, that is a difficult task. There we are. Well, Tobias Lund Andersen, to give him his full name, finishing in second place ahead of Alexander Kristoff. Campbell Stewart, good finish by him for Jayco, ahead of Lenardi and Barati, but Viviani is our winner and indeed our race leader. Well, it was busy, but in certain regards, possibly for the wrong reasons. A real shame that Matej Mohoric has been hobbled by the way that the day finished, and that after Bahrain victorious, did most of the chasing today. It wasn't exactly full on. Talk us through this, Pippa.
Yeah, I'm not sure if is it Josh Tarling who was doing leader, or was it Connor Swift? It was Connor Swift. So, yeah, they lead into the last 200 meters, and Viviani opens up from quite far out, but Lund's coming, but runs out of road.
I'm just looking where Campbell Stewart came from as well. He's going to have hopes tomorrow. He's nowhere at this point. And then they round this final corner, and the man from Jayco did a lot of work today. Suddenly decides to light it up as these guys pick up, and goes from about 15th place to finish just off the day's podium, I believe. He's eating up riders. Just a little bit of mistiming. Watch him in the blue and white centre of the road. That was good work by Campbell Stewart, and I'm sure that Robbie McEwen is watching this at breakfast and thinking he nearly got it.
Yeah, you're right. He came from quite a far. Obviously lost position going into those corners with that chaos caused by the sprint, and then full lead outs from Ineos. So he can look at the other sprints that are coming and think he's got a really good chance, because he's obviously fast enough to win.
I think he's got a chance tomorrow. As we go to Novalia, that was a lot of ground made up. Tobias Lund finishing just about a wheel length, I think, down on Viviani, who takes a terrific win. He's had a quiet time by his own standards. Would like more out of the worlds as well. He's that kind of guy. He does it on the track, on the roads, wherever he can. He'll take prizes. Got another year of his contract with Ineos Grenadiers, and it's been a bit thin pickings, as it generally tends to be honest, at Ineos Grenadiers when it comes to sprinting, because that's not their focus, but it was today. And Eli Viviani, I'm actually wondering whether that's his first win of the year.
That's his first win of the year. It's checking there, and it is indeed.
Goodness me. Well, he needed that. Now he can afford more hair gel. He leads overall because of the bonuses by 4 seconds ahead of Andersen. That's Tobias Lund and Alexander Kristoff. But taking great heart from that, I'm sure, would be Campbell Stewart. That was a great finish by him. It was just mistimed. If he can get that right tomorrow, we could have a hell of a sprint on our hands.
We could well indeed, and hopefully it'll be a bit less hectic than it was today. Nobody ever likes to see those kind of crashes in the last 10 kilometers of a race, because usually they're very high speed, and quite often there's consequences.
And here is that crash, and it's very much up towards the front. Touch of wheels within the Yolo Cometa team. They had already not exactly done themselves any favours. They were being shouted at by a number of teams. But I'm afraid they got bitten themselves, and this man, a chunk has been taken time-wise out of his challenge. Can he retrieve that in such a short race with one proper climbing day?
It's going to be difficult for him. Yeah, it's definitely the looking at the rough. You touch his like the Jaco rider there on the right. That's why they're looking back. But yeah, going back to that point, losing 50 seconds on the first day on this type of race, which he won last year, I think. Thanks to the bonus seconds that he took in a few of the intermediate sprints and the finishes. So yeah, 50 seconds is a big gap, and in one way for Bahrain, they're not going to have the responsibility of the race anymore. They can leave that up to Ineos, but it's a shame to have one of the race favourites, or the big favourite for the race, to lose so much time on the first day.
Sharan, who was in the break, is our King of the Mountains man, having assembled 12 points out there. So a Mountains jersey. Here, the Mountains jersey is green. I know. We, of course, will have a red jersey being worn by this man, Ali Viviani. He also leads the points classification. That will be Tobias Lund, who wears the blue points jersey tomorrow. Oh, we've enjoyed it. Trust you have too. People, we're sprinting tomorrow. Stage 2.
Yep, same again.